in time. So I just want to make sure that you have understood stuff. So can you solve this problem? I hope this was already put up as a tutorial. So can you try solving this problem? Can you tell me what is the number of hits? So has anybody tried this before? Has anybody tried? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. So has anybody tried or? Okay, can you try now? Yeah, please try doing this problem. Take a piece of pen and paper. You have to solve more problems, then only you get a hold of what is happening. So take this problem. It's a byte addressable computer, has a small data cache capable of holding 832-bit words. Again, I think this is from Gate only. Each cache block consists of two 32-bit words. And for the following, so it means that it's a 64-bit word, right? So you can assume that it is 8 bytes. So what does this mean? So they just, I mean, Gate generally wants to, they just give you some problems which might initially seem confusing, but the Gate is easy thing to clear generally. So each cache block. Okay, for somebody who don't know what is Gate, Gate is just an exam for the master's admissions in India. And also, of course, for computer science, I don't think there's option of this, but for electrical, they write because for PSUs, this is one of the whether you want to join BEL, BHEL or whatever it is. For PSUs, it is what they require. And also there is an exam called IES, but for computer science, it's not there, but I think you can take allied branches. It's called Indian Engineering Service. It's equivalent to an IIS. The cadre is equivalent, but you will be a technical person. So it's called Indian Engineering Service. So there's a lot of craze for that also. Yeah, so similar questions are asked there because even in electrical there is this kind of organization. Okay. Each hash block consists of 8 32-bit words. So which means that consists of two 32-bit words. So what does it mean? It means that it is the cache block size is 64 bits, right? Which means that it is 8 bytes. So how many bits do you need in the offset?
3.
3. Right? So offset is 3. So I hope everybody by now knows that offset is 3 bits. So it's a now it can hold 8 32-bit words. So which means that there is only 4 locations that are available. So 8 32-bit bits that are 4 locations available, and you start splitting the address, right? So you say, okay, it's a 32-bit address that is being generated. How do I split the address? You remove the last 3 LR from LRU. You remove the 3 bits, and then you take the index, and then you can start it. Can you try doing this? Please try doing this. If you are stuck somewhere, I'll definitely help you out. Can you try doing this? Pavan, Sahit? Pavan? Hello? Ashrit?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Did
Are
you
you?
call me?
Yeah. So are you able to do this problem?
I'm doing.
Okay. But did you understand why offset is 3 bits?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sahiti Rani?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand, madam, this 3 bits?
Yes, sir, I understood.
So will you be able to do this problem if it's asked in the final exam?
Yes, sir.
Because this will come in the final exam. Nitesh?
Yes, sir.
So you're able to do, sir?
Yes, sir.
What's the answer?
So once, sir,
Just one.
Yes, sir.
So how many sets are there in this particular question? Can you tell me how many sets are there? Okay, I hope you understood there are 3 bits in the offset, but how many sets are there? Hmm? How many sets are there? Okay. Are you able to follow the question?
Yes, sir.
Kranti Sedamaki?
Yes, sir.
So how many sets are there?
Sir, if if uh, if it's
Yeah, there is no if.
yes, is it, sir?
Okay. You're taking okay. Forget about this if. You tell me how many sets are there here.
There are 2 sets.
Yes, 2 sets. How did Kranti get that? Why is he saying that? He's saying the cache capacity is how much? Cache capacity is 832-bit words. Right? So that is equal to 4 cache blocks, right? Because each cache block is made up of 2 32-bit words. So it's 4 cache blocks or lines. So there are 4 cache blocks. And they have already said that it's a 2-way associative cache. So which means that 2 ways or 2 blocks become 1 set. So 2 blocks are clubbed as 1 set. Right? So which means that it's 4 divided by 2. So there are 2 sets. Okay. So now how many bits do you need in index? How many bits in index? How many bits in index?
1.
1 bit. Yes. So you need 1 bit in index. So that's the answer. So I need 1 bit in index. So let's say I have the address 200. It's let's say, okay, let's take the example of 20. Okay, let's take the example of 200. Since it's given, so generally when you start understanding computer organization, you will see that you should always use hex because it's easy to represent. So how do I represent this? The 2 will become 0010, and then 0 is 4 zeros, right? All the first, so in hex, the digit in hex is equal to the 4 digits in binary. So you don't have to mentally convert it into decimal or anything. Hex is actually pretty easy when compared to decimal. Decimal, you have to do this. In hex, you don't have to do this because each digit will become 4 digits in binary. So now this is what it is. Now you can say that these 3 bits, right? So these 3 bits are offset. These 3 bits are offset by, but for me the important part is this particular bit. This particular bit is telling me the index. So this will go into set 0. Agree? This will go into set 0. Right? Let's take the example of 208. So 208 is again 0010, 000. And then instead of this becoming 1, it's 0, it's 1, 000. So this will become the offset, and this is set. So this is saying this is going to set 1. Is everybody able to follow this? I hope you are able to follow this. So set is 1 here. So similarly, you can try out for any address that you want. You will get to know which set it is going into. And then since it's LRU policy, you know that this is the access tree. First it was 200, 204, 208, 220C, 2F4, and so on and so forth. You can see that 2F4 has been accessed multiple times, 2F0 has been accessed multiple times. And then you can figure out which block gets kicked out and see. Can anybody tell me how many misses are there in this LRU? So these 2 will be in set 0, this will be in set 1, right? Please try to do this.
So I think you get 2 hits and the rest are misses.
Okay, did everybody get that? I don't know the answer, but I hope the answer is right. So did everybody get it? Okay, so if you have, So are there any questions in the, do you have any doubts regarding this question? Hello? Okay.
No, sir.
Sir, what was the answer?
So Devashi is saying it's 2 hits. I don't know, but I am assuming she's right. But if somebody else has any other answer, please.
Sir, I think there are at least 3 hits.
Yes, sir. Like first of all,
Haven't finished
200 will
it.
come.
Okay. Okay. So now good that there is some disagreement. Let's do it then. Okay. So now is 200 a hit or a miss? Initially when 200 came, right? So
Miss.
let's. Right. So initially when 200 came, so it's a compulsory miss. I hope everybody agrees to this. But it's a compulsory miss. When 204 came, it's
a
compulsory
hit.
miss. It's not a hit, right?
So like 8 bytes will come, right? So 20, like all the way till 207 will come.
Wait. No, this is hexadecimal, not decimal. So what is 204? 204 is 0010, 000, and then it's 4. So how much is it?
0, 1,
110.
0100.
So 3 bits are in offset, right? So like from 000
Okay, okay, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
111.
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Oh, okay. So 204 is it? Okay.
Then sir 208 will come and it will be a miss.
Mhm.
20C will be a hit by
Okay.
the previous logic.
Okay.
Then sir 2F4 will come
Mhm.
and it will be a miss, but in this case 2F0 will also come with it.
2F0 will also
Come with it.
come with it. Okay.
So 2F0 will be a hit, the another
Mhm.
2F0 will be a hit, 2F4 will be a hit, again 2F0 will be a hit, then 2C1 will come and it will be a miss,
Okay.
and then 218 will also be a hit because of 2C1,
Okay.
and at the 21C, sorry, and at the end 24C will be a
So did everybody get the answer? I hope everybody got the answer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you try doing this problem? This is, I don't know where I took this from, but I think it should be some textbook or gate question. It doesn't look like a gate question, but yeah, can you try doing this? You don't have to do it completely, but just tell me if you are able to do this, then we'll go to the next topic. Okay, is everybody able to follow what is happening? So this question will also come in your exam. So I will not even change any values. I will just give the same question. Okay, so since you are not saying anything, I'm assuming that you already know the answer to this. Let's see.
So I got some answers for this. So will you like check them?
No, I don't know where to check them, but can you tell me what's the answer?
The first one is 0.04 into 0.20, just both the miss rates.
Okay, let me see if I have it somewhere. I don't think I have it. Okay, I don't know whether I have it or not. Yeah, but anyway, I would encourage you to do it. If you are not able to do it, we'll do it again in the next class. Is that okay? Right. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. Yeah, if you are, I will let everybody also try it. If you are not able to do it, we can do it later.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, but you are able to do it, right? I mean, you are just trying to verify the answer, but you don't have any questions regarding the question itself, right?
No, sir, I think it's okay.
Yeah. So, is there anybody having a doubt regarding the question? Please let me know. But I'm assuming if you put the pen to the paper, your answer it should be coming. If it is not, then let me know. Okay, let's read it at least. Approximately 15 to for transferring block and 100 to for transferring block. Right, it is just telling you the missed penalty, that's all. So for the purpose of this problem, assume that the hit rates are the same for instruction and data, and the hit rates in the L1 and L2 caches are point. So you are given the hit rate, you are given the missed penalty. What fraction of accesses misses in both L1 and L2 caches, thus requiring access to the main memory? So can anybody tell me what's the answer for the first question? It's pretty straightforward. Can you tell me what's the access, what's the thing for the answer, first one? Hello?
So miss rate of L1 into miss rate of L2.
Yes, right. So miss rate of L1 into miss rate of L1. So sorry, miss rate of L1 into miss rate of L2. Okay, I'm not sharing this screen. So miss rate of L1 into miss rate of L2. So what is miss rate of L1? Miss rate of L1 is already given you. The hit rate has been given. It is given as 0.96. So it's 0.04 into 0.2. So what is the total miss rate? What's the total miss rate?
0.008.
Yes. Oh, did everybody follow this?
Sir, why not just miss rate of L2? Because when you're missing in L2, then only you're accessing the main memory, right?
Yeah, so but what do? You first search in L1 cache, right? So it's a miss in L1 cache followed by a miss in L2 cache, which means that it was not there in L1, right? So that's what is. So what is the average, the fraction of memory misses, accesses that miss both in L1 and L2 cache? That's what they have asked. So what is the question? The question
Okay.
is missing both L1 and L2, which means that it should not be present in L1 and in L2. So when can such a thing happen? Only if it is not there in both L1 and L2, and they are dependent on each other, right? That's why you multiply, you don't add.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, okay, maybe there is a doubt in this question. See. Okay, let's stop this. Okay, so how does this happen? First, I access L1. Do you agree? I access L1. There is a miss. Only if I miss, only if I miss in L1, I go and access L2. So which means that let's say in 100 means 100 accesses to L1, I missed 4. So how many accesses did L2 get finally? Let's say I started 100 accesses, right? I searched in it. Only if I miss in L1, I go to L2. So how many accesses are there to L2?
4.
In this case, 4. So 4 misses. Now, only if I miss in L2, I go to the main memory. So how many accesses are there to the main memory?
4 into 0.2, 0.8.
Yes. So that's why you
Okay.
do multiplication.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. If it was 2 parallel caches, then it's addition. So it's like probability. So you do one event and then it follows another event. That's why you always multiply. So independent events you add. Is this clear to everybody? Yeah, please let me know. If it is not clear, I can repeat, or we'll go to the next topic, which is an important topic. So I'm assuming that you are able to do this question. The same will appear in exam without any changes. Of course, I also tell many lies in my life, so it need not be true. But assuming that that is true, will you be able to do it in exam? Okay. Okay, since everybody has answered yes, let's take the attendance and continue with the class. Yeah, so I don't know why there is, I mean, attendance is less today, but today is an important topic because we'll be discussing a few more things. Dinesh? Aditya Sharma?
Yes, sir.
Ishwant? Ishwant? Amit Kesari?
Yes, sir.
Grishmita? Grishmita? Badri Gautam?
Present, sir. Sir,
Gautam?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Sir, I was present on 23rd April, sir.
No, you were not, right? This is...
No, sir. I had told yes also, sir.
Okay, okay. Baindla Gautam? Babba Rutik? Ganna Yashwant? Kapa Harshita? Kapa Harshita? Sai Kritik? Naman Sharma?
Present, sir.
Shritesh?
Present, sir.
Ritika?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll start the class. If somebody is listening to the video lecture, please remember that this is a new topic. So pay attention to this and then we'll continue. So the Sunday I will be scheduling a class on cache. So anybody who's interested can attend the class. So it will be like just basics. So if you already know cache, you might skip, but I will try to explain it to you in a different way. So if you want that, we have the class on Sunday. Because this Sunday I will be moving down and totally keeping it only for tutorial. So I have a tutorial on distributed systems and also for here, so that we can catch up before the exam. Okay, so now it's a new topic, as I said. So let's forget about the cache. So let's assume that there is no cache. We don't have any cache. So we come back to our previous system. So we say that this was our previous system where there was this guy who was sitting and we had some 4 tiny boxes, which we call it as registers. By now you know that it is called registers. And we said that, okay, there is no cache for now. Let's say we are not worried about cache. We have something called main memory. But the one thing that we had assumed all our life till now was that the main memory is unlimited. Even in your QT stream, you assume that the main memory is unlimited. Even in your simulator that you are developing, you are assuming that the main memory is unlimited. But obviously nothing is unlimited. So this is also not unlimited. So there is some constraint. I just have to call. Okay. So there is this memory is not limited. So this is the main memory. So the main memory is not unlimited. So this is a limited capacity. So just for our understanding, let's take it as 256 bytes. The capacity of main memory is 256 bytes. So then we say that the memory is from 0x0 to 0xf. So this is what the structure looks like now. And we start a program. We say that the program, you wrote a beautiful program called the program0, program.0.c. You compile it and you created an executable and you launch this program. So a program which is running is called a process, which means that it has a life of its own. A program itself just is a code. But when you compile it and when you create it, you're creating another file, which is just an executable, which the machine can understand. So that's what you're doing. So when you created an executable, you created executable program 0 or program 0.out or whatever. Generally, this format is called ELF. There are many other formats, so it's one of the machine formats, which means that the machine can understand. This is the program that you can understand. This is the program that the machine can understand. But these are still files. But when you launch it, when you launch the program, you are actually putting life into this. It means that instructions get started. I mean, they start executing on the processor. So you can actually start running this program. So I can say, okay, I want to run this program. So it means that this is getting executed on the system. So now when I'm executing this program in the system, it will start doing some ALU operations. This you already know. You know that it is doing some ALU operations. It is doing some memory operations. Now, why does it do memory operations? Because it of course acts upon the data of the memory. It acts upon some data. So it adds some data, writes some data, and if everything is available, if everything can be filled up in these 4 registers, then you don't have to access the main memory. But generally, more often than not, the amount of data that you can store in the registers is limited because the number of registers are limited. So there is something called register spill, which means that I cannot store everything in the register. So I obviously store even in the main memory, or there is some data that you are accessing from the main memory. So now when you are doing QtStream or when you are doing your own processor, your own simulator, you assume that the starting address, memory address is 0x0. Okay. You assume that the starting address is 0x0 and it goes all the way up to say whatever. If it was infinite, you said that it goes all the way up to something like this, right? So you assume that that's infinite memory capacity. So you said that it goes from 0x0 to 0x whatever. But here I am saying that this memory capacity is limited. So it means that your memory addresses that it can generate is between only from 0x0 to 0xFF. So you can generate an address called 0x3E. You can generate an address called 0xEF or something like this. But you cannot generate an address 0xFF or 0x100 or something like this. You cannot generate this. Why? Because you only have 256 bytes. So this address is not allowed. So this works perfectly fine. So did you guys follow till now? So you are making sure that your program can generate only addresses between 0x0 to 0xFF. Because why do you have 256 bytes? Of course, not 0xFF, you have to generate only the 0xEF because 0xFF is like, if you can generate the address between 0 to 255. You can generate from 0 to 255. You cannot generate a 256 byte. Is this clear till now?
Yes.
Okay. So now, do you think there is a problem with this?
Yes, sir, because the program might need more memory.
Let's say the program doesn't need more memory. Any answer?
Program and variable should not mix with each other.
No, right? So that is the headache of how the programmer writes that program. Either it's the headache of the compiler to generate the addresses, or it's the headache if there is no compiler, you are directly writing machine code. Let's say you are talented to write only machine code directly, or you are able to write assembly code and you are not even using compiler, you are using an assembler. Then it's your headache to generate exact addresses. So you should not mix it up. If you are mixing it up, it's your problem. So all this person is doing is it is generating an address between 0x. It is generating an address from 0 to 255. So it can generate an address 254. It can generate an address 83, but it cannot generate an address 382. So I am sure that I will not generate an address between other than this many addresses. If I am sure, do you think there is a problem? If I give you such a system, will you use the system? What is the biggest drawback of this system? The answer is fine.
So, if, for example, let's say I have written the program for this system which is having 0 to 255, and some other system is having only, let's say, 127, then I think
okay, so that is one problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem. What Devashi said is also a problem, but there is one more bigger problem. Let's say I am a company and I want to sell this machine. Will you buy this machine? What is one big disadvantage of this machine?
So how will you put the program into the main memory?
Let's say I have some secret space here. It's a good question, but let's say I'm putting it on the secret space here. Of course, I can put it here also, but let's let's not divert from the main thing. No, there's one big disadvantage, right? Like, let's say you are using your computer. What are you using your computer for?
Lots of different things.
Lots of
All
different
the-
things, right?
so-
Yeah, you are using Zoom. You are playing a game when you are listening to the video lecture, and you are also doing some WhatsApp when you are writing your exam, right? So if suppose say I give you this system, will you be able to copy in your exam? No, right? You will not be able to copy in your exam because you cannot open WhatsApp, you cannot open Firefox, you cannot do anything. There will be only one terminal, so there will be only one thing that, which means that you have to keep entering answers there. There's nothing else that you can do. But today you can do anything that you want. You can just open Firefox, you can open Chrome, you can open video game, you can listen to this video lecture, you can do whatever you want. Right? So, which means that what is the inherent thing that is happening? What
You
is
could keep
happening?
switching between things and doing
Yes,
many tasks.
yes, right. Yeah. So you are doing multiprocessing. So now in this system, can I do multiprocessing? In just whatever the system I told you, can I do multiprocessing? Can I do multitasking or multiprocessing? Can I do that?
We have to divide the address space for different.
Okay. So one person is saying, I want to divide the address space. So what he is saying is, I will divide this address space. I will give this to process 0 and this to another process. That's perfectly valid question answer. Does everybody agree or happy with the solution?
Yes, sir, but if you keep doing this, then you'll be reducing the amount of memory for each process.
Yeah, if I keep doing this, then I keep reducing the memory. Okay, so now we'll add one more component before we go, we jump further and further. So what is the most important component that we add is we have the main memory. I'm not writing the cache anymore. We'll again come back, we'll attach that cache, that poor cache again. But now, as of now, we are acting as if the cache doesn't exist, but you should remember that the cache does exist. Right? So we had from 0x0 to 0xFF. But I will tell you that there is one magic component here, which is, again, this is not infinite, but let's for now, again, for our curiosity, let's assume that this is infinite. So there is some infinite capacity here. And does anybody know what this means? What this might be?
Secondary memory.
Yeah, this is the hard disk or secondary storage. So let's call it a secondary storage, but it's hard disk. Right? So your hard disk. So what I'm telling is, I give you an option to store whatever you want in the secondary storage. But only thing is, it's pretty slow. Maybe it's like 10,000 times slower than this particular main, or maybe 1,000 times slower than the main memory. We will not get into the details, but depending on the system that you are building, it depends on the system. You can use different kinds of system. But this is pretty slow. But I have given you infinite amount of memory. Like what I gave you here when I initially started the class, I said that there is infinite memory in the memory itself. Now I am saying there is a limitation on this, but I am saying I am attaching an infinite memory capacity, a secondary storage where I can copy anything I want. Now can I enable multi-process system? Now I am convinced that I want to launch multiple programs. Can I execute multiple processes in this system without maybe dividing the process? How do I do this?
Maybe by swapping in and out of the.
Yeah, right. So let's say I start with program 0, process 0. Now I start using the word process. You should not confuse it. It's just that the program in execution, but the same program can be in execution in multiple instances, which all are different processes. You can launch one. You can write a program which adds 2 numbers, launch it once, open another terminal, launch it one more time, open another terminal, launch it one more time. All right. Let's say you launch it 100 times. All 100 will be different processes. They will have different process IDs, even though they come from the same program. So let's call it as a process. So now I launch process 0. Maybe I at some point want to execute process 1. Then what do? I write this to the secondary storage. I write the secondary storage. And maybe process 1 was here. So I launch the process 1. Now again, after some time, the CPU decides, or somebody who is sitting, some god who is sitting here decides that, okay, this guy is now executing P1, but I want that person to execute P0. So then what do? I write this P0, P1 here, right, into the secondary storage. Again, I write, and I read whatever I had written, right, of the memory, and then I keep doing this. So what am I doing? I'm doing multi-processing or multitasking system. So if I look at my timeline, if this is say 100 seconds. So this is started from 0 seconds to 100 seconds. Then maybe maybe from 0 to 3 seconds, I executed process 0 on this particular person. And then 3 to 8, maybe I executed process 1. This need not be same or anything of this sort. Then process 0. Then maybe after only 1 second, I executed process 1. I can keep doing this. Now, can I execute 100 processes? In this way, can I execute 100 processes? So for a user, how does it look like? Let's say I am a user who has launched process 0. You are a user who has launched process 1. So let's say I have launched process 0, and Amit Bhai has launched process 1. Right? So for me, it appears as if the process 0 is executing for 3 seconds, and then again it executed for another 3 seconds. So I only see this timeline. I see only this timeline. Here, I feel that my process was not doing anything. Maybe it is not responsive. Maybe it is slow. I don't know what it is doing. But I am not able to see process 1. I only see this. And maybe Amit Bhai is seeing only this. Only this. For me, it appears as if only my process is running on the system. For Amit Bhai, it appears as if only process 1 is running on the system. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in this setup, can I support 100 users and all 100 users launching 100 different processes? Is it possible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anybody else want to answer?
Yes, sir. But as you keep adding users, all the users will be more unhappy,
Like
right?
you
Because
have
they'll all
to.
take longer.
Yes. But before that, just answer if you are understanding what I'm saying. Forget about the answer. Just think about whether I can support multiple users or not. Yes, I can support multiple users. So the way I do it is, so what is the system? Okay, some people haven't understood. Okay, many people haven't understood. So I'll come back to the question again. So I have a process. I have the main memory. The main memory is 256 bytes. So what is a process? Process is just a program in execution. So I have also a secondary storage where I can write or read. I am assuming it is infinite. Please, it's just an assumption. It is not infinite. Of course, I don't have hard disk which is infinite. So let's assume that the capacity is infinite and I can read and write any number of times. I don't have any issue. Okay. So now I am also guaranteed that each process, it is just a guarantee. We'll break all these barriers, but let's assume that there's a guarantee that a process which is executed on this processor will generate addresses between 0 to 255 alone, which means that it generates from 0x0 to 0x7. It only uses 256 bytes. It's guaranteed to use 256 bytes. So I'm guaranteed about this. So a process generates only from 0 to 255 and nothing else. So I'm guaranteed that. Now, if there was a single process, let's say there was a single process called P0, then there is no problem. Then it's like, and the entire playground is for me. I can bat, I can bowl, I can become an umpire. I can bowl and run and bat on my own. I can do anything because this entire playground is for me. I can do anything I want. So this entire thing is for me. So this entire 256 bytes was used by process 0. But now one more person has come. He's saying, I want to execute process 1. But I want to run it on this system. One way to do this is, okay, you say, let this process complete, which means that I complete the execution and then only P1 will execute. That is also fine. It's like somebody is running process 0. I come to the system and say, can you launch process 1? The system will say, no, I am already busy executing somebody's process. Only when that person finishes executing process 0, you will be allowed to execute. It is perfectly valid, right? So there is this, I mean, you can see such systems, not computer systems, but you can see such mechanisms available in real world applications. But that is, I mean, you don't know for how long process 0 will execute. You don't know, you don't know much about process 0. So the goal is to make the user believe that this entire system is available only for one person alone. So it gives you a feeling that this process 0 is available for this program, for this person alone, this computer. Let's say let's call it this as computer X. So you make sure that this computer, you give a feeling to the user that this computer X is available only to one user and nobody else is using this user. Now, how do I do it? Let's say the person one, person zero came and said that he wants to launch process zero. So you launch process zero. Right? And you continue execution. You execute it for some time. Maybe you execute it for 2 seconds, and then you know that process one is also waiting to get executed. So you execute process zero for 2 seconds, and then maybe for another 2 seconds you execute process one, and then for another 2 seconds you execute process zero. For another 2 seconds you execute process one, so on and so forth. So you get a feeling. The person who has launched process zero will get a feeling that this person is executing only process. He doesn't know anything about process one. So it just means that, say, let's say he executed the program for 10 seconds. Even though the program is executed only for 5 seconds, he will think that for the entire 10 seconds, the system was available to him or her. But how do I enable this? By using secondary storage. So when I am shifting, so here is where the shifting is happening, right? So here I'm shifting from process zero to process one. So I was executing process zero. Now I am stopping process zero and going to process one. But maybe the process zero has updated some value. Let's say the process zero has updated the value in 0x8. Maybe here the data, it has written it as ABC. Let's say it has written the data as high. Now, if I don't save this anywhere and launch process one, maybe process one might also generate an address 0x8, and it might say update 0x8 with hello. So maybe process one generates an hello. And after some time, you bring back process one. Now, if it reads 0x8, what is the value that it will get in 0x8? What is the value that it will get in 0x8?
Hello.
Hello, right? So why? Because it has already been changed. So you didn't save that high. So what I am saying is, when you are switching from process, so when you are switching from process zero to process one, whatever is there, I don't know whatever has been written. Of course, you can again now you already are intelligent. You know that there is something called dirty bit. You can say, okay, I will only copy those which are made dirty and all those things. But let's not get into that as of now. So you copy this entire memory into the hard disk, because you know that this, even though this looks small, this is not small. This is like Kumbhakarna, which is like, it has infinite capacity. So you write this entire memory here and launch process one. So you, in your shifting, you write it to hard disk, and you read the process one from hard disk and large execution. And then when process zero is again, when you are shifting from process one to zero, whatever you have written, you will read it and launch it. So you write and then read. So how does it look like? So it looks like P0, you write and then you read process one, and then you write and then read process two, process zero, and then you write and then read process one. So you can keep shifting. So it gives a user feeling that there are multiple processes that are running simultaneously on your system. If you don't believe me, this is how your system is also fooling you. This system has been fooling you from the day you were born. You were thinking that when you open Firefox, there is nothing else running. When you are playing game, you thought that there is nothing else running. But there are always other processes that are running in system, right? So let's say I see my system. You just do a command stop. Let's say so you can see there are so many processes that are running, right? So you can see that there's a user called Raghu who is running, there's a user called MessageBU, there's a user called RPC, there is a user called root, there's a user called NTP. These are all users. There are multiple users, even on my laptop, who are running this. Whether they are real users or virtual users, I am not worried, but there are so many users that are running. And I have how many processors? I have how many processors? You can see, you can count this, right? These are the processors. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 processors, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 processors, hardware that is available. But you can see that there are so many processes that are running in parallel. It gives you an execution. It gives you a feeling that all are running. But if you see this S state, right, just read about it after you get time. There is this S state, which is S for many of the things. But you can see that there is one XOR which is in R state, and this Zoom is was in R state for some time. Then again, it might become S state. Even Zoom is multiple processes. You can see here, right? So you can see that the system has been fooling me and you, because it has become intelligent. It has been fooling you from your birth, right? So it has been fooling you, and we were okay with that. fooling me because I never noticed that Zoom was, when I was running Zoom, something else was running. So I never noticed that. Okay. But how did I achieve that? How did I, now I as a system builder, I want to fool people. Right? So that's my goal. So my goal is to fool people to buy my machine. Of course, I can have 100 processors and 100 memory units and tell them that it will run 100. But I can't do that. I have to compete, though I have to fool them. So I have only one memory component. I have only 256 bytes. But I want to sell this machine saying that, okay, this 256 bytes is available. You can launch any number of processes on this system. One way is they just do copying this. Now my question is, can I launch 100 processes? Yes, you can launch 100 processes. Now, how is it done? Maybe for 2 seconds you run process 0, the other 2 seconds you run process 1, the other 2 seconds you run process 2, the other 2 seconds you run process 3, process 4, and at some point you bring back process 0, which means that the effective usage of process 0 on the system is very limited. So now the user gets frustrated. Why? Because maybe his program runs for, like, it's like Zoom runs for 2 seconds and it gets frozen for 5 seconds and then again it comes back for 2 seconds. Then I'm very angry because I can see that lag, right? So because process 0 is coming, and then after some time process again I'm getting. So if I as user know only about process 0, so I got the system to myself only for this time and only this time. For all this time, the user was not, the computer was not running my program, which means that the Zoom was frozen. So I am very unhappy with this kind of model. Now the question is, can I do better than this? Or is there a way to do better than this? So did everybody understand? Understanding is more important than the answer. So did you understand now, people who answered no? Did you understand what are we trying to do? Okay, good. I know that I keep repeating this, but this is also very important, not for your compilers anymore, but I will be, of course, compilers also is important. But there is one more course called operating systems that you will be taught in the next semester or next semester, I don't know. But for that, understanding this concept is really important. We will build this slowly. It will take another 4 or 5 classes. By the end of this course, we will be building a machine where you will be able to go and fool people, saying that, okay, buy my machine, I can run hundreds of programs. It gives you a feeling that all programs are running on the system, but it will not be the case. Okay. Are there any questions? So we'll stop the class today, but tomorrow we'll. But think about it. Like, think about what can you do. Like, can I do something else? Like what Amit Bhai was saying. Right? So Amit Bhai, what did he say? He said, okay, instead of having this system, let's maybe continue for for 2 more minutes. So what did he say? He said, okay, I don't want to do this. I have a program of 256 bytes. So he said at 0x80, he said he will give this to process 0 and this to process 1, which is a perfectly valid solution. Do you think this will work? Now both are, so now why, now what was the problem in the switching? When I switched from here to here, the amount of time it took to switch, was high. Why was it high? Because I have to write and read. I have to write and read. I have to write and read. And you know that this guy is very slow. So the amount of time it took for me to switch in between was very, very high. So if I'm running this for 2 seconds, the time to switch might have been like 100 seconds. So what is happening in real world? What is happening if I build such a system? It is no longer like this. It is something like this. So I've launched P0, but for this particular amount of time, I am only switching from P0 to P1, which means that I'm writing to hard disk and reading it. Then P1 gets executed, and then there is junk time, and then there is P0, and then there is junk time. So you are wasting your time. You are wasting your time here. You are wasting your time here just to write and read, right? Because that's what you have to do. You have to read, write, and read. So you want to reduce this so that the user doesn't get frustrated. So one of the solutions that Amit Bhai is saying is that I'll split up the memory into P0 and P1. So 0x0 to 80 is P0 and 0x80 to 0x is P1. So now I don't have to switch anything, right? So now how does this look? Mine looks like this, whatever I was looking at, right? So there is no switching time because I don't have to switch. If P0 is running, it's using this memory. If P1 is using this, it's using this memory. But before we break the class, do you think this solution will work? Okay, how many of you think the solution will not work? Hello?
Yes, sir, but the
Sir.
CPU know not to use the other guy's memory.
Yeah, so one thing is what Devesh is saying is she's saying, okay, if P0 generates an
Also,
address.
sir, we have only one ALU, right?
Yes.
So how can you, like P0 and P1, how can they both simultaneously?
No, they're still not going simultaneously, but at least the switching time is reduced.
Okay, so yes.
See, here I was paying 100 seconds for the switching time. So you are executing for 2 seconds, then paying 100 seconds, then executing 2 seconds. So the user is made to wait for very long, even though you are running multiple processes. Here, the amount of time you have to switch is 0. Agreed?
Yes.
Maybe you are just storing back the registers. Maybe the registers, because there are only one copy of registers. Maybe you want to store back the registers, but registers are anyway fast. You know that memory is also fast. So maybe saving the register is not a big thing. Maybe there's a switching time of 0.1 microsecond, but I'm still okay with it. But I'm at least not wasting my time. Of course, I am still working with the question that what if I launch hundreds of processes, then it's slow. We will come to that question later, but at least now my goal is to reduce the switching time. So do you think the switching time will be reduced or not?
Yes, sir, it's ready.
Yes, right. So it will be reduced, right? It's almost 0. But is there a problem with this? So the first problem is, let's say I sold you a system. What Devesh said is also right, but let's not even get into that. Let's say I sold you a system. Okay, I sold you a system. I said that there is 4 GB of memory that your system has. I charged you for 4 GB. You paid me for 4 GB of memory. But when you launch a program, you are saying that the program can only run on 2 GB and not on 4 GB. Now, will you be happy with it, or will you file a case in the court against me?
It will slow down because if you have a smaller memory.
No. Will you file a case against? No. Will file a case against me?
Yes,
I don't know.
Yes, right. See, I have sold you a system which says that I had 4 GB of memory. But when you launch a program, I am saying you can launch only for 2 GB. Then you will ask, why did I buy a 4 GB memory system? That's what you are saying, right? Here you have 256 bytes of memory. You have 256 bytes of memory because Amit Bhai is saying, he's saying each program can access only 128 bytes. So even though your system, let's say the user doesn't want to use 2 processes, the user is very good, he says, I'll use only 1 process. Then also you're saying he can only use 128 bytes.
So why would I do that? If the user has only 1 process, then I'll let that guy.
So he has already written a program, right? So you see, now you want to support 2 process system. Let's say you want to support 2 process system. So who is generating this code? This address 0x0 is generated by the program. This address 0x83 is also generated by the program. All right. So now you have already written a program. Yeah, right. So so the user is forced to write a program where he can access only from 0x0 to 0x80. Now either he has to go back and rewrite the program, and it's not a simple thing. You already know writing assembly is not easy. So either he has to go and rewrite the program, or he can just use 128. In either ways, he's unhappy. So are you following? Yeah, it's okay if you don't know the solution. As I said, the solutions are easy. The questions are difficult. So if you have understood the question, we will discuss it on Wednesday. But if you haven't understood it, please think about it. You will also stumble on the same dilemma of what to do. Okay. If I stay back for another 2